I want to talk a little bit about your upbringing. From the outside, it seems like you have it all together, right? You're young, quote unquote, successful, and so confident in the way you speak and hold yourself. But I know your journey wasn't easy. You moved from Thailand to the US at the age of 7. And I know you had so many transitions in between that, being in Thailand and then coming here. Can you maybe take us back to that time and maybe share some of the key moments that you think have really shaped the woman that you are today?
Yeah, my gosh. Yeah, I will take it way back to the beginning. I was actually born in Bangkok, Thailand, and I grew up in a family that kind of had a broken home, I guess sort of to say. Like I never really saw my parents much. I had a babysitter because my mom had to work every day, and then my dad also was never home, but it was for a different reason. I think he was just like out and drunk, and then one day my mom had been home and she was sort of over it, right? He was always like coming home super late. And I remember them having an argument. Next thing I know, he like hit my mom in front of me and my sister. And I think we were like 6 years old at the time. My sister was like 8 or 9. And that was like a pretty traumatic experience for us. And then right afterwards, I remember we're standing on my grandfather's estate, and they're basically saying, hey, you have to pick between who you want to live with, your mom or your dad. And I was like, well, obviously I want to live with my mom because my dad was kind of abusive towards me and he kind of favored my sister, but I didn't really understand what that meant. Like when I picked my mom, I didn't understand what the decision would mean. And next thing I knew was she dropped me off at my great grandparents' house, and she just left me there, and I had no idea why she left. But all of a sudden I was separated from my sister, my dad, my mom. My sister, I guess, went with my dad, but I didn't quite know. And back then, like, we didn't have cell phones, and so I didn't really have contact with any of my family members. And she left me at my great grandpa's house, who was deaf and mute from the war because he was a pilot. He lost his hearing, and he had the love of his life in, like, basically on a bed. She was, my great grandma, and she had suffered a fall right before I was born, where she severed her spine, her lower part of her spine, and she lost all bodily function. So she basically became like a vegetable, where she couldn't really move, she couldn't talk, she could barely even move her eyes. But they would just feed her fluids, and he kept her alive, knowing that like he loved her and wanted to be with her. But I obviously was in this environment that was very non-stimulating as a child and wasn't really given much care. And I was in that environment for about like 2 years. It was a poor part of Thailand as well, and I had to walk to school every day. And then I didn't quite know like when my mom would come back, and then eventually she did. And then she took me, I remember very vividly, over the Golden Gate Bridge. And I remember, wow, for the first time, I feel like my life is just beginning. Because before then, I literally had like nightmares every night because
Oh,
I just thought that my life was over. And yeah, and then right after that, I went to, normal school. I started third grade in America, learned English in about a year, started off as English as a second language, and then quickly graduated to like the gated gifted and talented program within a year because I just worked really hard in school. I think I didn't want to go back to that place again. Like I was very scared. And so I just focused on studying for a really long time. And it was harder to make friends in school because I think I didn't build up the social practice that I think normal kids would build up if they weren't isolated for long periods of time when they were younger. And so I had a hard time like making friends at school. I had like one friend from third grade onwards. And after that, I had a hard time making any friends until like high school and college was when I
hmm.
started really like becoming social and breaking out of my shell. But I was extremely shy and introverted. I know maybe that doesn't come off that way
Yeah.
now, but like I really practiced and like really got out of that headspace. But that was, how I was brought up. Yeah, I think that the way that it molded me was, I think that I am extremely resilient, and I have a high tolerance for discomfort. And so I think that really helped, when I was starting my business, and when people were like, oh my God, it's so hard to like start a business. I was like, wait, this was so much easier than my childhood. So let me just, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is so much more fun. Like, I feel like so mentally supported just because of the fact that, we were having success and there was hope,
Mm.
just
Mm.
the fact of there being hope, I was like, that's more than enough for me to keep going, and I think for a lot of people they need more than that. Um, so yeah, I think that I would say the short or long
Yeah.
version of how it molded me.
Totally. I mean, there's so much to dig in there, but yeah, I love what you were saying around like perspective. Like you had such a tough upbringing. I mean, you mentioned when you were younger, you felt depressed and you came here, we're on the Golden Gate Bridge and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like alive again. Like you felt, and you're a kid. Like I can't imagine what an impact that is. And, like you said, entrepreneurship is tough. It's like a mental game every day. There's days you wake up where you don't feel 100%, but you have to give it your all, especially when you have a team. You can't hide from anything. And like you said, you're like, this for me is actually the best thing I can ever do. And I sometimes even notice myself, like, I'll have maybe a few tough days and I try not to complain, but I'm like, I feel burnt out or whatever. My husband is always like, you get to do this. Like, it's like
Mhm.
that perspective change is so important because it's like, these are first world problems. We're healthy, we're alive, the business is good, you're impacting people. It's like anything else, like, really, that perspective shift is huge. So I can imagine that being so strong for you because the lows are tough, but you're like, you know what? This is nothing compared to what I've gone through, which is important.
And that's the biggest gift that I think my mom gave me, was just the ability to have an opportunity, right? Like bringing me here to America. Like I would not have been able to have the same opportunity in Thailand. And, I'm very aware of that, right? And I remember that they actually did a spotlight on me in Thailand, and they did it in Thai, like on the Thai news channel. And then I look at all the comments, and people were like, "She wouldn't have been able to do this in Thailand." Like, I mean, they were like, "This is awesome," but also like, "She wouldn't have been able to do this in Thailand." And I wholeheartedly agree. Like, I don't think that that was possible in any other country, especially a third world country. Like, America is truly the land of opportunity, and that's why I tell people, like, hey, people like to look down on the fact that, like, oh my God, I'm working a 9 to 5, I'm so stressed out. But hey, it's like the fact that you're living in America is such a blessing you don't understand. You know what I mean? Like what other people have to go through in other parts of other parts of the world is not even close. So I think like really try to be grateful for that, and like try to take the opportunity that's been given to you. Like you're one in a million.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to dig into your story because you had no connections, you learned everything on your own. But we'll wait before we go there. But I'm curious, your mom, obviously brought you here for you to have a better life, for you to have opportunity to like change the trajectory of your family. Did that come with her having certain expectations for you to kind of take the more stable route when you were in college and kind of thinking about your next step in career?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she sacrificed a lot for me to be here, and my sister too. My sister actually came to America about like 6 years after I arrived. So I mean, we had a long period of separation, and by the time I saw her, I was like, "You're my sister! Wow, I'm like meeting you for the first time."
Wow.
But still, she did so much to try to get us over here, and she remarried to my stepfather, who then like was able to help us get a green card to come here. Um, but yeah, I think they definitely had more stricter, more like standardized points of views, like very old school. My dad also wasn't much older. He was like 30 years older, and so he had, he thought like go to school, become a doctor, get a degree. My mom thought the same thing too. Like she's Asian, and so obviously like she wants us to be the most successful that we can be, and the way to do that and what's fed down everyone's throat in America is like become a doctor. Like especially, Asian parents, they want you to do that. And so I did. I literally studied in school. I was a pre-med degree. I studied psychobiology at UCLA. I worked really hard to get into UCLA.
Yeah, that's big.
And then declared psychobiology pre-med, thinking that I would maybe take the MCAT when I graduated. And then when I finished school, I realized I don't think I want to do this. I don't see myself working in a hospital. Like I just don't think it fits my personality. Everything, all of me was screaming against this idea, even though like I knew that that's what I should be doing. And so that was a hard decision. I kind of had like an inner conflict of like what I should do versus what I want to do. And what I actually wanted to do was, initially I wanted to be an artist when I graduated college. I took like an art class in freshman year, and I realized I had this like sort of hidden talent for art. I guess not so hidden because my mom was also an artist, but I don't think she did practice it professionally that much. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm actually pretty good at this. And then I sold my first painting right out of college for $5,000, and I thought I had made it. I sold it to this celebrity dentist, and then soon after that, I started an Instagram art page called The Modern Artista, which is actually my current handle right
Yeah.
now. And I sold commission paintings for people. I started drawing people's like pets. I started just taking random commissions for whatever people wanted, and I realized I can make a lot of money actually doing this, and it could be a full-time job for me. So I ended up doing that and hustling on that for about 3-4 years before
Wow.
I kind
Longer
of
than I knew, actually. So you
yeah, it was
graduated
wild.
college and you were doing that for 3, 4 years as like your main thing.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I was doing some other stuff on the side. Like I was learning how to trade stocks. I was just hustling. Like I was just figuring out like what are the quickest ways for me to make money so I can get out of the hole that I'm in. How do I get out of, I wanted to pay off my student loans. It was like maybe $40,000
Okay.
that I had to pay off. But for a new student, that's like a lot. So I was like hustling as much as possible. And then within about a year, I was able to pay all of it off
That's huge.
of working. So, but I think I realized that, 3, 4 years in, I was like, wow, I'm really lonely doing this because I'm just, first of all, it's like I'm not working with anybody else. I don't have any team members. And so every time I got up, I'm like, I have to paint now for 8 hours the rest of the day, like in front of this canvas by myself, in isolation. And so that was really hard, not talking to anybody the whole day. And I did that every day, and then eventually I was like, I don't know if I can be happy doing this career. And I also want to be able to put my creativity into a product that then I can mass scale. And my favorite thing about handing over a painting to somebody was them being happy when they receive it, like that expression that they have on their face when they have a painting that they love. Like I want that same feeling, but in a product. And so that's sort of when I started to think through like, hey, I think I really need to start a brand here. And I had friends who had just gotten into Shopify and had amazing success. So I was like, okay, I think I need to try to take that route and see where I can take this. And so that's sort of like the beginning phases of Glamnetic.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine being by yourself. I mean, listen, even like working in the early days when it's just you in your apartment trying to get the business off the ground, it's so lonely. I mean, I still kind of feel that because we're all remote. But I can imagine doing that day in and day out for 3, 4 years. And I was actually going to ask, like, how did you even know that starting a product and that life was a possibility? But it seems like you saw friends kind of do it, have a Shopify website, that planted the seed. So I'm curious, you had this idea, okay, I want to create a product. I want to do something more scalable than you just, creating these paintings every day. How did you think through like what product you wanted to do? How long did that process take?
I really thought about what are the major gaps in the market. It's always the way that I always approach any new, like, I think anybody should approach any new company is like, what is the white space here that you're filling, and how are you going to be the expert in that compared to other people, or how do you get to become an expert in that niche? And for me, like I wore lashes like every single day. It was sort of a crutch for me too, just because I was very like I don't know, I had self-confidence issues, I feel like, growing up, just because I was like the only Asian person in school. I got made fun of by like how my eyes looked, and I grew up in like a mainly like white Latino like school, and so I'm always comparing my eyes to other people, and I was like, how do I make my eyes look bigger? And lashes was the answer. So I got into lashes like very early, like mid-teens,
Oh, wow.
and I think I started literally testing every single brand and just seeing like what works for me. So in my own way, like I was an expert in lashes, and you will not catch me without lashes. But then I also realized like all my friends don't know how to apply lashes, and that
Yeah.
most people don't. And I was always the friend that was helping other people.
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly.
okay, there's obviously a hole here that someone's not solving. And I was like, why is nobody solving this big hole? And I saw that magnetic lashes started trending. And this was like around the time when I like had just started like trending, and people, it was the type of magnets, it was type of lashes that sandwich your lashes between two layers of magnets. So it was like a top layer of magnetic lash and then a bottom layer, and you have to sandwich, and they're just supposed to like stay on magically through the magnets, but I noticed that they slide off very easily, they didn't work very well. And so I was like, okay, how do I figure out how to get this to stick? And I did see another brand that was sort of testing the idea of magnetic liner, but it wasn't executed well. It was like in a pot. It wasn't a liquid formula, and branding was bad, quality was bad. It didn't actually work. It's like that's a cool idea, but execution is horrible, branding is horrible. I think I can do this way better, and so I just sort of like started Googling like how do I even develop a product because I had no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's like literally so green to this. I went on YouTube and started researching all of these things, started to get more knowledge on it and getting more confidence. I think knowledge equals confidence, right? So the more knowledge you can get, the more confident you become. And then I just started searching all over other websites and finding suppliers. Finally, sources started sourcing some vendors, getting supplier samples, telling them my vision of what I wanted the product to look like. And I messaged so many vendors. It took me like a year to even find the correct one, as I messaged so many and sampled so many, and a lot of them didn't have the capabilities that I needed. And then I also got better at my messaging on how to get the perfect product, and then finally landed on a lash supplier that could actually do what I wanted to do. Most of them didn't even know how to glue magnets on a lash. Like on a, I wanted a glam lashes, like full glam lashes, not the plasticky, skinny, fake looking one. I wanted like the full volume ones, and I wanted them to put magnetic lashes or sorry, the magnet on there. And that was a new concept at the time. No one had actually done that. We were the first glam magnetic lashes to ever launch. And so I was so excited when I finally got that and I showed my friends and got the formula down for the liner. And my friends were shocked. They were like, wow, what is this sorcery? Like that was always the feedback. They thought it was black magic. It was crazy. And I was like, wait, this is such a great reaction. I feel like this could do well. And honestly, when I was launching, my goal was just doing $10,000 a month. I was like, I'd be happy with a steady $10,000 a month where I don't have to like paint for 8 hours a day. And, when we launched, it ended up doing way more than that. So, and then I was like, wow, I think this could actually build into something amazing as the feedback came in and people were like, this honestly changed my life. Like I had never been able to wear lashes before. And now for the first time, I'm able to apply them myself. And that was really like amazing feedback, and the reaction that people would get. And so, yeah, that was the first month.
Yeah, I mean, I love this because I get the question a lot of, how do I find a manufacturer? And you said, you knew nothing in the space when you were starting and you just went and Googled and just probably called, like you said, so many people. It took a year. And I think that's just like part of the process, unless you know of somebody who might know a recommendation. But so many people, like I remember even for me calling like people on like the fourth page of Google, like, and then asking them, like, do you know anybody who can help me create my
Yeah.
product? Like, you just try to like become friends with them and they're like, who do I talk to? So I love that you started that way because it just shows that if you have an idea and you're passionate about it, like you have the resources available to
Mhm.
figure it out, whatever way that looked like. And you did. And, I know you were quite frugal, right? You haven't raised money. You were kind of putting your own money into this. So tell me more if you remember, like, how did you fund that first order? Like, was it a lot of inventory you had to buy? Like, what did that look like in the early days?
Yeah, so I started off very small. I wanted to be conservative. Again, I was like shooting for 10,000 a month. So I was like, okay, like how much would I need for that? And I also don't want to overorder in case this doesn't work at all and I don't want to be out all this money. I only
Yeah.
started with 100 units per SKU.
Oh, great.
We started with 5 lashes and then
Okay.
like the magnetic liner and then like a couple accessories. And so it was very minimal, and it like they weren't like the products weren't that expensive to begin with. And so, all in maybe invested like 10K into products in the beginning. And then like website too. Like I did find somebody on like Upwork to do that, like overseas, because I didn't know how to code, but I did everything else. I fully did everything else. The product photography. I taught myself how to do professional photography, like model photography, as well as product photography. I just like watched on YouTube, got all the equipment, and then like turned my apartment in Koreatown into like a little photo shoot studio, like right next to my art, like art painting place. So yeah, it was very interesting, and I felt like it was so fun because it was super bootstrapped. Like you should have seen my setup for my very first product photography shot. I literally had like 5 paint cans stacked because I couldn't get my ring light to bend that
Oh
low.
shoot.
And
Yeah.
so and then I had like a lash on top of a white piece of paper. And it was just very like, okay, we're just gonna, wing it. But then the results of that shoot, it looked professional. I was like, no one can tell. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter. People don't see the behind the scenes. And then like it's so funny because people thought that like we were a big company because the website when we launched it did look professional. Like I think I did a good job with the model photography. It looked professional, and I was like, wow, I can say we now, even though it's just me right now. And I love doing that. I was like,
Yeah,
we at Glamnetic, even though it's just me.
totally.
But yeah, those were the best times. I like still cherish those memories. Those are like the most fun times in my life. Was the very first year of Glamnetic and starting it up. And I don't think I was ready for the sheer volume of orders that we were about to get, like the upcoming months, because it got really crazy.
Yeah, and I have a few questions there. One of them being, you did, like you said, do so well starting out. Like I don't know, I think maybe the first day, I think from another interview, you said you did like $1,000 worth of product on the first day, and your goal again, right, was like 10 grand in a month, and it really scaled. How did you get that first round of customers? What was your strategy early on?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I was first of all, I had been posting on my Instagram account for Glamnetic and on my personal account for like 3, 4 months prior. So like that when like we launched, that first like $1,000 were like these people that have been watching that content, which is like not that many people. Maybe it was like 6 people that bought, but still like it added up. But then after that, I realized like we gotta be I gotta be my own salesperson here. Like if I'm trying to get sales, I have to almost like knock door to door. Yeah, how do you knock door to door? Is you DM each customer that's following you. So that's sort of like a way to do that. So it's the sort of like DMing people. I'm like, hey, I'm the founder of Glamnetic. Like, we just launched. Let me know if you have any questions. And then people are like, oh my god, yeah, like you guys have like a crazy product. How does it work? And I would explain to them, and then I'd be like, by the way, we have a discount code that I just made. Say your name is like Leanne, and I'll be like Leanne 30 for 30% off, and people would freak out because it was like their name. And I'm like, you have 24 hours to redeem this discount code.
Oh,
And then
timing. I like that.
yeah, and then they would do it. So I got like an insane conversion rate on that. And so like the first month we did like 30,000 in revenue, and then we started layering ads. Like I got an ad buyer on Upwork from India, and then he started. I would make videos talking about the product. I'd be like, "Hi, I'm Anne, the founder of Glamnetic," and I'd be very like founder facing and explain the product. And then he would run those as ads, and it ended up working really well. So we would layer those in, and basically every month after that, the revenue started doubling every single month until we were like hitting like 1 million a month in revenue by like month 4 or 5.
Oh my God, that's massive. And you talk about how those early years were like one of the best. And I hear that from a lot of founders. They'll be like, enjoy the time. And even though, like, when you're in it in those very early days, especially, I mean, I can't imagine scaling that quickly right when you launch. I would imagine that was like so wonderful, but probably stressful at the same time just to kind of keep up with it. So, how did you even support that like 1 million in revenue? Because you were still shipping everything by yourself, right? In your apartment at the
No,
time?
actually, that was the biggest unlock. I think was we had a 3PL, which is a third party fulfillment center, and we just basically shipped all of our products over. So I never had to like,
Good.
if I had to do that, there was no way I would be able to do the marketing aspect and grow as fast as we did. So I would say that that's my biggest tip to new founders is get a 3PL ASAP. Like you actually end up saving on shipping costs because they get bulk shipping discounts for shipping so many orders. So that's what they do. It's their bread and butter. So it's actually not that much more expensive for you to use 3PL than for you to ship it on your own. But the number, like the hours that you would save and the effort is crazy. And then also storage, right? Like storing all your products yourself and sorting through all that is such a nightmare. So yeah, we had a 3PL, and then we were able to scale quickly because of that. And then I ended up bringing on like one other. I had like an intern from UCLA, and then for like 3 months, and then after her, I was like, okay, I need to bring on like a full time person, and then my business partner joined around like sort of the beginning as well, and then I had this one girl, Mia, who came in as a referral. By the way, I went through like three bad hires who I trained for an entire week, and they just like decided to dip because the Glamnetic headquarters was my bedroom. And I think they were just like, this is not what I thought I was signing up for. I thought we had an office, but like I was sort of like bootstrapping budget and figuring it out. And Mia was down, like she was like my right hand woman from the beginning, like working, doing all of the things. Like we were doing email, product photography, model photography, shooting ads, product development, you name it, customer service. We were doing everything. And then that's when we started to scale after that. I started hiring more people more quickly. And then the following year, we ended up with like 30 people on the team in the
Wow.
US. But like it was like out of a need, like out of a necessity of just like needing to hire faster. But yeah, that's sort of how we started.
And in the early days, I mean, I could imagine, when you're trying to keep up, it's just you're looking to hire one person. Spending a week explaining everything takes a lot of time because you have
Yes.
to still do the work. Like, I know that feeling. And I could imagine you feeling so defeated by
Oh
like
my
the third
God.
person. Did you feel I mean, I'm sure you weren't questioning the business, but like, what did you feel like at the time? Were you just like, oh man, like, is it me? Like, I know it's a very strange feeling to go through that.
Well, I was so overwhelmed. Like I wasn't eating and I wasn't seeing family and wasn't seeing friends. I would literally just stay inside. I don't think I came out of my house only to get like products um, for like two years straight. But like yeah, definitely the first year was the craziest. And I would even invite friends over to just like assist me and help me. Like I'd be like, I'll buy you pizza. Like I need help. Whatever I could do to just get people to help because I was so overwhelmed with all the stuff I was doing. And like the orders just kept coming in. And then we had like all these customer service issues, delays, product issues. I mean, you name it, it was happening. And then I was like, I have to stop all of the, I mean, I have to like not pay attention to all of this for like a week and train somebody full time. I was actually so scared. And then like when the first person quit, well, I think the biggest mistake was I hired her on Craigslist. That's the biggest mistake. Don't do don't do that. And yeah, she ended up leaving. I was so honestly, I was like crying. I was like, I can't believe this. Like I was so upset. And then it happened two more times, and I was just like, I think maybe hiring's not for me. Like I remember,
Sure, totally.
and I remember thinking like, am I being too much? Like I probably was being too much because like, I'm really intense. I think I was intense because, I was doing so much and I was expecting them to take on, some of the work. And I think for them, they're like, whoa, like this is not, you're not paying me enough for me to care this much. So I understand from their perspective now looking back. But it was a hard pill to swallow. So that's why I am really glad that we ended up finding Mia. She was a referral of a friend. And because she had just graduated college and she needed the work. And she was like, hey, this is a good startup experience for you. You should do this. And like, she believed in the vision. She believed in me. So I was like, okay, let's do this. And she's still here to this day.
Oh, amazing. I was going to ask. And I'm curious because you were saying, obviously when your business is growing at the scale you are intense because there's a lot happening, right? Like, and you do need that help. And, like you were saying, you're maybe questioning yourself. Am I intense? Like, I think about that all the time too. Like, I want people to have like good balance. And I'm always like, am I too much? But sometimes it's like the business requires you to like show up a certain way and with certain growth metrics. So with Mia coming in, was she just like down for it? Like, do you think as you've hired so many people, is it like, a personality thing that you see and like a personal motivation? Like, what have you kind of learned from your hiring her and then like maybe the 30 people after?
100%. It's definitely all three of those things. So it's like we try to hire people now that are hungry, humble, and smart. So exactly what you were just saying, like people who have the motivation. First of all, motivation without if you're smart without motivation, you're still lazy and you're not going to do the work. And then just emotional intelligence, I think, is another piece of it, right? Being able to work with other team members because there's some people who think they're LeBron James and they don't want to, be a team player, but then it causes toxicity within the team culture that we've noticed. You're like, oh, she's an A player, but she's not able to work with other team members. So that's when you have to really make sure that all three of those things are balanced. And yeah, I think Mia came in with like she was hungry, she was very humble because she was okay with like coming into my one bedroom apartment in Koreatown. It was a back house of another house, by the way. It wasn't like the actual house. So it was kind of, questionable. And I totally understand. It looks like maybe a serial killer could live back here, but like it's and we're like, well, this is where we're starting Glamnetic. And she was cool with it. And she was very like just eager to learn. And I think a lot of people, like young people nowadays, I think they get fed maybe the notion that they should be handed things on a silver platter, but like you have to really work for it and be okay with suffering a little bit, to be able to get to the bigger things, you know and and now she's like super happy that she's stayed with us. So
That's amazing. I love that. I remember when I was young back in the day, I remember I left like the corporate world and I joined a startup and I took a massive pay cut, like at least like 40%. And I was supporting myself at the time, but I was like, it's worth the opportunity. And I worked even more than like my other jobs. And I was like, working in finance back in the day. So I love that because now I took all those skills, fast forward a decade, like I have the grit. I have learned how to like run a business. So I agree. Like sometimes taking those pay cuts, being around the right people and like being challenged and being in those uncomfortable situations, like only allows you to grow, but you have to be like, you have to enjoy that. I mean, not that I was happy go lucky every day, but I knew I was learning around the people. So I love to kind of hear that because it will only benefit you in your life if you have that mentality.
100%. And if you're, that's the biggest tip too, that if you're not confident enough to go after it yourself and do it by yourself, you know, be sort of a mentee to somebody who has done it. And the way that you can do that is not just only finding a mentor, but also getting employed by those people, right? And then you can get paid for it on top of learning. That's like a great win-win. And then you can go off and decide to do that. Like we have had employees that then went off and started their own businesses and they're doing great. So I think I love that people like take inspiration from me.
Yeah, you get like a real behind the scenes and it like helps you kind of start your own thing if that's the route that you want to do. So I'm curious, I'm sure we could probably have a whole podcast about this, but like any challenge, I mean, I'm sure there were so many mistakes, so many hiccups scaling that much, but like any stories or anything that you remember that was like really just crazy. I'm sure you got stories for days, but I always love this question.
I mean, like some of them I can't disclose because it's private. But I guess the one thing that still stuck out in my mind was, so there's this feature on Shopify called automatic discounts, and basically do not ever touch that button. It's basically what happens is if you apply a certain amount of discount, it like automatically discounts the products in your store. And so we basically there was a loophole where I guess if some people bought over a certain amount, they can get this automatic discount applied, and it was like 100% off somehow
Everything. Okay.
of everything. And so people found this loophole, and I think like people talk to each other basically on forums as well, and they tell other people about it, and it started to be this thing. And at the time, we had just started learning more about Shopify. We didn't have a checks and balance system in place, with filters where it doesn't allow certain orders to go through if this criteria is happening. And so we didn't have that. We didn't have these sort of sifters for the business that we should have had. And basically people went ham and ended up ordering like tens of thousands of dollars of products,
Oh my
like worth of
gosh.
products. Like I don't even know how much. I think like over like $200,000 worth of product we ended up losing through this because they had already shipped by the time that we caught them. It had already gone through our 3PL and they had already shipped. So just imagine like pallets of like
Oh
lash,
my gosh. I can't
getting
imagine.
shipped, and then you're having to pay for the shipping. So that was one of the things. I mean, there's a hundred other stories like that, just through Shopify. Like that's something that's a platform that you need to like understand the ins and outs. And some people are like expert scammers, and they can figure stuff out like that for ecom sites.
Shoot.
And
Good to
so
know.
you got to make sure you know that and have filters on your Shopify so that you can catch all orders that could be fraudulent.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. And, I'm just curious. I'm sure you're dealing with stuff that comes up even today that you're managing that are challenges. But I know we talked a little about perspective when we started the interview, but like, how do you manage those emotions and those feelings when you're going through something like that? Like, do you just go into solution mode? Like, I know sometimes when you're just so busy, yeah. Like, how do you manage those situations?
I mean, 100% go into solving the issue. Both me and my business partner, like, they were like, okay, let's just figure out how to solve the problem. We're not going to be emotional about this because it doesn't help us. And then, like, after the fact, it's like, obviously, you are a little bit emotional, but you also have
Yeah.
to be like, okay, how do we prevent this from happening in the future? Let's put all of our energy and mental energy towards that versus being upset. And so, I mean, in the beginning, like first year, I was emotional about everything. And then by year two, I was like a robot.
Yeah. You become like that.
The first
Like,
year it was so bad. I was so emotional about everything. I remember, I mean, we only had like 100. Like, remember, I ordered 100 units of each lash right to begin with, and I remember like our 3PL misplaced like 2 units, right? And I was literally calling them, like being like crying, like, where are the 2 units? You guys lost it, like, and I was calling the 3PL like 3 times a day to figure out where these like lost units went. And I'm like, at this point in the business, it's like we lose 50,000 units, we're barely batting an eye because just the scale of mistakes have gone up, and so then you have to be okay with that happening. Sometimes it's like a part of doing business.
yeah, it's so true. I feel like in the beginning when you're learning these things and there's obviously going to be mistakes, like you're so emotional. It's like you're building your risk tolerance a little bit. And by like year 2, year 3, year 4, I mean, I'm already year 3, you're like, we'll figure it out. It's like nothing phases. You're like, oh, there's a fire that's like burnt. It's like, all right, we got this. Like, I had like someone, she just joined the team. She's my operations assistant. And, there's a lot of things that go wrong in operations. Like, it's just the nature of business. Like, you just got to navigate. And she was so worried in the beginning. I was like, D, we're good. Don't worry about it. Like, you'll notice. Well, we always figure it out somehow. But yeah, that first year is very emotionally taxing, but you kind of like have so many issues, like you said. By the end you're just like, all right, we got this. Like, all right, what's next? What are you going to give me? Like,
Yeah, exactly. I think what's also scary though is that as you scale, like the severity of mistakes get larger, like the stakes get larger, because now you're dealing with like, instead of, a couple units, you're dealing with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of units, you know what I mean, if you mess
that's
up.
true.
And yeah, so the scale just keeps getting bigger for you. And I think that's when it gets scary. And some businesses do make the wrong move.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that can cause them to like go out of business. And you still have to be aware that that's very real.
Shoot.
You
Yeah.
know, it's very scary.
Do you ever have that thought, like we might go out of business?
I try not to think
I
that, but
know.
yeah, no, I think that my business partner is more like I task him with that side of the business. I'm like, okay, you figure out, what can go wrong in the business. He's thinking about that all the time, and I'm thinking about like, okay, product vision, social brand, like, because it's hard to be in that mode and also think about this. It's
Oh,
a very
100%.
stressful brain space to be in.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I'm curious, we didn't talk too much about your business partner, but you mentioned he kind of came on earlier. How did you guys get connected? And would you say that was a big unlocking for the business?
He came on, like, I actually met him so random. I met him at an INH photo shoot. Um, yeah, insert name here. He had another brand called Insert Name Here, and I basically went on as a model, an unpaid model. They asked me to come in, and I was about to start Glamnetic. I already finished the product. I already finished, the development and everything, and I already had the name. I was already launching it, had the LSC. And then he saw that I was working on it because I brought it into the office and had girls test it. I was bringing the products everywhere. So I was like testing it on everyone because I wanted feedback. And he's like, oh, this is really cool what you're working on. I was like, thanks. And then, um, I don't know, like maybe 3 months, 4 months after that, he was like, I really want to like be a part of this. How do we work together? And I was like, I mean, I think I would need help, like maybe further down the line on like the back end stuff, the ops, finance, law, legal, like all of the stuff that I don't want to touch, but is important, like the business side. And then so that was sort of like our agreement when we started, was like, okay, you handle sort of like all of that stuff, and then I can focus on more creative, brand, product, social, like everything else, marketing, and obviously being the face of brand and everything. And so yeah, later on he ended up coming on, and he wasn't quite as active until maybe like 2020,
Oh,
because
really?
we started like 20 Glamnetic launched like end of July 2019.
Okay.
And sort of, I was sort of like working by myself on it for, yeah, about 6 months. And then once it started really scaling and we needed demand planning, because it was very impossible to predict how much inventory we needed. And we were always selling out super fast, especially for Black Friday. That was
Mm.
so crazy. It was a crazy time. And we had like back orders. And so majority of the business was like, okay, let's figure out how to even get inventory in quickly enough. Like that was their biggest problem. And so, yeah, him and then this guy Lucas, who was sort of his right hand man, came and like helped with like demand planning, and then started sort of like sending in more like of a skeleton for the brand, and that was super helpful. So yeah, for sure, I think as it scaled, Kevin and Lucas were like instrumental in helping for sure, because so that things were not breaking, because things were about to break, given how fast we were scaling. I think like any business going from like 1 million to 50 million in revenue in 1 year
Oh
would
my
break.
gosh. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. No wonder you did not go outside for 2 years. Like, how do you move? That is huge. Wow. What an
Yeah,
incredible story. And like all self funded, just like you
yeah,
guys being
super.
scrappy throughout all of it.
It was the craziest time, and I think like we both were all looking at each other like, whoa, like how, because the trajectory that we were going, I was like, whoa, we're gonna do like 100 million next year. Like what is happening, you know what I mean? Like this is the craziest brand that I've ever seen. And so it was just more about like keeping up with, all of the demand. Ads were just performing super well. Like I was shooting, oh my God, I was shooting like 30 ads every single night. So I would finish work at like 8 p.m. and then I would start shooting ads for like another 2 hours.
Wow.
Um, and then I would sleep and then wake up and then do the same thing again, like work on the brand and then shoot ads. So my nighttime routine was like from 8 to 10 p.m. I would shoot ads. And so those were the ads that we ran that like got us sort of like this virality. I just did like so many iterations, and I was working with the ad buyer very closely. And he was like, okay, I need you to do more of this. This is working. This is getting really good ROAS. Let's do more of that. And so I was just sort of like a content machine. Um, and then we started hiring like sort of like video editors to help like edit the videos and like come up with like more creative ad ideas. And we just got really, really good at ads. Like
Yeah.
that was the number one thing that I think we mastered that helped the brand scale more than anything, was that just getting really good at performance marketing across all channels, not just Instagram and Facebook, but eventually other channels as well. But mainly Instagram and Facebook. That was sort of like where we scaled. I think the craziest moment for the brand was also like we had ended up spending so much money on Meta that Sheryl Sandberg reached out to us and was like, "Hey, we'd love to do a spotlight on you guys for the Q3 Facebook earnings call." And we're
Oh
like,
my gosh.
what? It's so crazy. You know what I mean? I was like, what? This is crazy. And then they like read off this whole like 3 minute bio about how Glamnetic started in my Koreatown apartment in Los
Wow.
Angeles, and how we scaled to like $50 million in a year, thanks to, obviously they said thanks to Facebook and like the Facebook platform. And but it was Sheryl Sandberg reading it, and
Wow.
so I remember like listening to that and just like crying because I was just like, this is crazy. This is like the most insane thing. I feel like I'm in a dream right now, because it was maybe like a year and a half after I had launched the brand. You know what I mean? Like I know most brands like spend like 5 to 10 years just even trying to get to this phase that we're in, and we hit it in a year. So I just like felt, definitely more like how are we deserving of this, but also like this is, let's be grateful.
Wow, that's huge. I can't even imagine what a like full circle moment to have her reach out and to just share about your performance. And I'm curious because you hear, people saying as they do like algorithms change, platforms change, are ads still a big part of your focus now in the business? Are you still shooting all those ads or do you have a bigger team at this point? What does it look like now?
Yeah, so a lot of our spend and just like attention has like sort of gone more towards nails. So press on nails became like a major category for us about 2020, like end of 2020. It started to become like a hugely major category for us. I think because of the rise of, after COVID, everybody started doing everything DIY. Lashes obviously are DIY too, but I think with nails, like everybody's a user of nails. Not everyone
Yeah,
wears lashes, but
sure.
every girl I would say wears nails. And so that was a major category because I found a white space in it where we saw that there was no super on trend press on nail brands that were high quality, like salon like finish, but your IG inspo, uh, but on your actual nails, and that you could do it yourself at home in like 5 minutes. So it's like, okay, like we need to really make sure that whatever nail mold that we're creating, like the mold and the thickness, and the curvature of the nail, the length, everything has to look like salon and feel like salon quality. But the design seemed to be so bomb that it's like people want it because that's what's trending right now. And so we really sought out to do that. And 3 years in, I feel like we're like one of the best in the market to do this. We're one of the best brands, if not the best in premium press-ons, to be able to execute as well as we did with designs, and people like really recognize that, see that as the point of difference. Also, our nail glue is really strong, and so like people are getting like super longevity out of it. It feels like cement, like when you put it on, and they last up to 2 weeks. We claim up to 2 weeks, but a lot of people get a lot more than that. Like my friend who tried it for the first time, hers last 4.5 weeks.
Amazing.
First wear without a single one falling off, and then she was like, "I'm not putting these on again because I have to get them professionally removed." And I'm like, "Isn't that a good thing?" But also, we came out with a remover. We came out with a remover that helps people remove easier. So now, like, the remover is doing really well too. So now we're like trying to create a holistic system of like, okay, your whole entire mani like system at home. The prep, the buffer, the remover. We have cuticle oil. We have like we're coming out with like hand care stuff. So I think that's gonna be helpful in making people feel like it's like a holistic experience. But yeah, we really focus on making sure the designs are amazing. And I think people really notice that. They're like, wow, these are gorgeous nails that if I got this exact style done at the salon, it would cost me $200. But you guys made it super easy and it's $15. You know what I mean? So it just took off for us. So that became such a massive category for us. And so now it's like sort of our dominant category.
Is it now? I was going to ask if it passed the eyelashes. So it is. That's amazing. And I love how sometimes in business you don't know, right? You could have a hero product and then you launch another one and it surpasses it. Like I love hearing stories like that because sometimes you don't expect it when you have like your one main product that you launch with that did so well. So it's so fun to just kind of see that. I'd love to maybe hear, as someone who has been running this business that is really scaling rapidly, how has your definition of success changed over the years of your life?
So yeah, I think for definition of success, that's something that I've thought about quite a lot throughout this journey since it's changed quite a lot. And I think one of the quotes I heard was that definition of success has changed to now when your decisions are made of what you want and not from a place of desperation. So now I feel like my decisions are made from a place of I want to do this versus I need to do this. And it's like that freedom of choice that I now have versus before I felt a little bit more desperate and was kind of willing to do whatever it took to get there. And at this point, I do it from a place of like my own personal values because when Glamnetic came into fruition, I think I realized that success is about having a sense of purpose and being able to fulfill on that purpose. And those purposes for me are making a meaningful impact for our customers' lives through the innovation of our products, which I directly touch every day. And then the other thing is being able to make a meaningful impact on our employees' lives by helping them learn and to grow in their career. And then also personally, being able to support my family financially. Like my mom my dad recently passed away, so my mom is like recently widowed, and she never had a job. She was always like sort of like a housewife, like supporting my dad while he was being sick for most of her life. And so when he passed, one of the things she said to me was like, I don't know what I would do if you weren't here, because I like fully support her financially. Like I pay for everything for her and got her a house in Thailand, and just being able to give back to her that way, knowing that she like sacrificed a lot for me when I moved to America, was like one of my biggest, I don't know, it made me so happy. It was one of the biggest, proudest moments for me. And then I think like also on top of that, like just being able to have the freedom to be able to explore the world around me. I think so many of us are kind of stuck in this like bubble of like, this is it for me, is I'm in this bubble and I'm only staying here. But I really care about like traveling and seeing cultures outside myself and seeing what the world is like around us. And that to me too is, I think, a definition of success, is being able to do that, having the ability to do that, which I know most of the world doesn't have.
Man, I'm so sorry to hear about the passing of your dad. And I just have goosebumps. Like being able to support your family is huge, and you being there for your mom. And, we'll talk about your upbringing because your mom has done so much for you. And one thing I want to call out with just your answer is so many people who are starting out in business, or you listen, even when I was working the corporate world, I'm like, you think success is like money and hitting different titles. And in business, it's like an ever moving target of, I'm going to make X amount this month. And then you hit it. And then it's like, let me make X. And,
Yeah.
of course, like having financial stability for yourself is helpful, right? Like you need that to like have a baseline. But those moving targets of success, it's like, I realize it hasn't been the most fulfilling thing for me. And I love how, at least for your definition of success, it was more experiences and how you support your customers and the impact you're making and your products and supporting your family. Like, I just love to say that because, at least for me in the beginning, I was like, oh, I just want to hit 1 million in revenue and I'll be good. And it's like, actually, you make it, and it's not even what fulfills you and drives you. It's all the other life stuff. So
Right.
I love that.
It's the intangible things that you can't get with money that I think then you realize like these are the things that are impactful to me on an emotional level versus like hitting the metrics and the goals. Although obviously those are important. Like
Yeah.
that's how we stay afloat. That's how we support our employees and their livelihoods and their families. But, I think besides that, like, it's like, how are you making an impact to like the lives of other people in your life? And I really think success just amplifies your personal values. So if your personal values are screwed up, they're going to amplify those. But if they're in the right direction, and they're about like helping and supporting other people, then it's going to amplify that. So, how some people say like people lose their way when they make money. I really think it's more about just it magnifies the person that you are.
And I know we're coming up on time. I'd love to just maybe ask one last question. Throughout the interview, you mentioned, earlier on that you were more of an introvert and you've worked on it, and, you didn't always have the self-confidence that you do. So I'm just curious, reflecting on everything in your life that you've been through to this day, what do you think really helped you manage any self-doubt that you had?
Yeah, I think I try to be. I think it's the same quality that, or it's the same mechanism that I use in manifestation, which is like a lot of it is like visualization. Right, especially the time before I go to bed, I like to like visualize sort of whatever it is that I want at that time in my life. When I was younger, I like this is a funny segue, but when I was younger, I was sort of like the ugly duckling. Like people thought I was a boy. Like I got confused a lot, looking like a boy, and I would be so like sad about it, and I would imagine right before I go to bed, like I want to be like this beautiful, confident girl that knows what she's doing, and I would imagine that like every single night before fell asleep, and I would say that like that came true. Like I became the girl that I always wanted to be, but I didn't know that I quite wanted it to be until I saw the visualization. I saw exactly in my mind's eye like what that looked like. And same thing in like owning this business. And I wanted to be somebody that had a sense of purpose in the world and made impact on other people's lives in a big way through my creativity and through my art. And this was my way of doing that, right? Like through this brand. And then I think like that's sort of how I get over the whole like, hey, you're not there yet. It's like, because I'm like, if I can visualize it, see in my mind's eye that I'm there, then it's like, why would I be doubtful that that's achievable? If I can see it in my mind's eye, I think it's possible. You know, what's really unique about humans is we're the only creatures on the planet that are able to visualize something that doesn't already exist. So like use it to your advantage. Like you can be whoever you want to be. And I truly believe that. I think it comes from being able to achieve it the first time. Like the fact that I was able to achieve what I saw the first time gave me more confidence to then visualize and achieve again. And then it keeps building on top of each other. And like I'm 31 now, so it's like I've had 30 years of practice in that. And I think the older that you get, the better that you become at that, and the more you achieve and the more confident you get. And so I think that's the way you should see it, instead of seeing what am I not? You should be like, what can I be? Different reframing of the mind.
I love that so much. And just to recap, so are you manifesting like every night for like X amount of minutes or just a few times a week? And are you being very descriptive about, I mean, you're an artist, so I would imagine it's like very descriptive in your brain, but I'd love to just hear like the technicality around it.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it almost kind of feels like a storytelling. Like I remember what I would visualize when I was younger was this girl walking through the door, and she would be walking, but she had like really fashionable clothes on. She was really pretty. She was really confident, and people would look at her and be like, "Wow, like she's got that like pep in her step." Because I was never that girl. Like I was never that girl growing up. Obviously, I had a broken childhood. Like I didn't get a lot of love growing up, and so and it was hard for me to make friends because I was very much like an outcast. I had just learned English, and there was no reality in my head where I could have been that confident person. But so I was like, let me just fantasize about it. And then eventually it happened. So like, it's almost like as much detail as you can give it is the best. So if you can like imagine even to like, what's her earring look like? What does her hair look like? What is she wearing? What shoes is she wearing? Like, what does the environment look like? The more specific you can be, I think the closer you can be at like getting the full feeling and the full impact of that image in your head. Like even like imagining who your future partner could be like, and you being happy in a relationship with a future partner. You might not be able to like see his face, but like, what's the feeling that you're getting from being with this person? And like, what are you guys doing together in this scene that you're seeing? And I think it just, I don't know, it subconsciously like makes you be able to manifest things and bring it. Because when you see it, you recognize, wait, that's what I've been envisioning
Yeah,
this whole
that's
time.
true.
This person's right there. I'm meant to be with that person. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times we're blinded, especially if you're like down on yourself, if you're not confident, and you're depressed. I feel like you're sort of like have blinders on like a horse. And when that perfect person, perfect opportunity is right in front of your face, you literally can't recognize it. So it's like just training your subconscious, like, hey, when it's right here in front of you, grab it, you know?
Oh my gosh, I love all this. I believe all this. I'm like convinced I had a list before I met my husband where I would just add qualities of someone. I remember going on so many dates and being like, okay, he wasn't right for me, but I like this about him. And I would just come home and add to the list and
Oh,
I'd
that's
read it every
awesome.
night. And I swear my husband is like
Oh my
literally
God.
everything on the list. And he also had a list. So I'm like, I haven't done that for my business in like that detail, but I do love how like I visualize, but not to the detail of what you're saying outside of my husband. So that this is just a good reminder for me to take
Yes.
the time, like really think about the like create a story, like you said, because I believe in all of that. So I love that that's been such a big part of your journey and so beautiful from a little kid, how that was a way that you would kind of escape your situation to think about the positivity that could potentially come. So, but Anne, oh my gosh, I feel like I could talk to you for so long. You are amazing. Wow, what an incredible story. I just can't wait to continue to follow you and all the incredible products that you guys will continue to bring out. But this was such a blast. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes. Thanks for having me. This was such a fun conversation. Honestly, one of the funnest podcasts I've been on. So
Oh my God, I'm honored. Thank you. Thank you for making it fun.